The United Nations World Food Programme says nearly all of Gaza's 2.3 million residents are in desperate need of food assistance. Food, water and aid supplies into Gaza have been minimal since Israel imposed a siege nearly 6 weeks ago. For a second day, no aid trucks have arrived in Gaza due to a lack of fuel for distributing relief. Israel says it will allow 2 tankers of fuel into Gaza each day to support the water and sewage systems to prevent disease. Juliet Twomer from the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees says the humanitarian situation is overwhelming.
Every single day, the number of people who come to seek shelter in UNRWA facilities is on the rise. We have so far more than 800,000 people who continue to flock into these facilities in search of safety, in search of humanitarian assistance, in search of protection.
With more on the unfolding humanitarian crisis in Gaza, our Middle East correspondent Allyson Horn filed this report from Jerusalem.
Israel has imposed a strict blockade on goods entering Gaza since it launched its military operation almost 6 weeks ago. Since then, food, water and medical supplies have dwindled. Some families in Gaza say they haven't eaten in days, and they tell the ABC they fear their children will die. Small amounts of aid, including food and medical supplies, have been allowed into Gaza through the Egypt border crossing, but it's just a trickle compared to the needs of the 2.3 million Gazans suffering through a humanitarian crisis. Many of those are children. Now, the United Nations World Food Programme has issued a dire warning that civilians are at immediate risk of possible starvation. And for the second consecutive day in a row, no aid trucks have actually gone into Gaza because there's no fuel to distribute the aid and there's a communication blackout. After weeks of refusing to allow any fuel into Gaza, Israel has just announced 2 tankers will be allowed in each day after a request was made by America. Israel says this fuel will specifically go to powering the sewage system inside Gaza, which is on the verge of collapse. And its military says they want to prevent the spread of disease for civilians and their soldiers. They say if an epidemic does break out, the fighting will be stopped. Now, it's not immediately clear whether or not this fuel will be allowed to go to hospitals to keep them operating, or even to aid organisations for the trucks to distribute these humanitarian supplies across the Gaza Strip. And while the fighting continues, the Gazan Ministry of Health has updated its death toll figures, saying 12,000 Palestinians in Gaza have now been killed. 5,000 of them are children.